This is video 3 of a 3-video series dealing with summaries of quantities. And in this video we will talk about how to take this quantity block that you've created, which we demonstrated in the previous 2 videos, and to get that quantity block over into OpenRoads Designer to your MicroStation file, like what we have here, that is a seed file for your summary of quantities. So if I go back to the Excel file, and the first thing that we're going to do is actually run this little toggle right here that says auto size, which is cell A number 2. And what it will do is look at the longest piece of text in that particular column, and it will size that particular column up accordingly. So whenever I click on that, which is, like I said, A number 2, you'll see that it went through here and automatically sized these columns. Now you can still manually put in the numbers if you want to put those in there. So if you want it to be just maybe a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger after you put it into OpenRoads Designer, you may want that column to be a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. You could always come back in here and change those numbers accordingly. But whenever you run the auto size, it's automatically going to size those columns to what it thinks it needs to be. So kind of keep that in mind. So once we have that, now we can take this quantity block and bring it over into OpenRoads Designer. And to do that, we need to run this option right here that says Run, which is cell A number 1. So if I select that, what you should get is this Microsoft Excel files are done. And if you get that, it actually ran the macros correctly. So whenever you go over into OpenRoads Designer here in a little bit, you know that it'll bring that quantity block in accordingly. So we'll just click on OK to that. Now if we go back into OpenRoads Designer, we have this particular seed file which we created in a previous video. And there's a couple of ways we can get this over into this DGN file. One way we can do it is if you go underneath the Miscellaneous. There's an option right here that says Excel to OpenRoads Designer. You could run it from here and it would bring it in. So that's one place you can get it. Another place you can get it is underneath this design ribbon. If you go to General Annotation, you can get the Excel to OpenRoads Designer there. Or you can also go to Quantity Sheets and get the Excel to OpenRoads Designer there. So you have 3 places that you can run this particular key in. So I will just go back to the Miscellaneous and go to Excel to OpenRoads Designer. And basically what you want to do now is figure out which sheet that you want to put it in. So this would be sheet number 1. This is sheet number 2. This is sheet number 3. This is sheet number 4. And of course it would keep going. So I'm just going to place it in sheet number 1. So all I need to do is come in here and left click to place that quantity block. And now you'll notice that it placed that quantity block in there in that location. Now it builds it from the upper left going to the lower right. So whenever you see that X, that's how it's building it, from the upper left to the lower right. And you notice that this heading right here was automatically centered, and that was because if we go back to the Excel sheet, that particular text is in B number 4. It automatically looks at that quantity block and it centers it accordingly. The justification is all justified from here. So if we go back over into the CAD file, you notice that justification is all set the way it should be. You see that we got these center line symbols, and that was from the Excel file because we put in that \203 because it's using the Mo.dot font, and it uses that particular character and it maps it over into the CAD file like it should. Now once you have this placed in here, you could always move these quantity blocks to the exact spot that you want it. You know, you may want it here, you may want to put it on a different sheet. It all depends on the job that you have and how many quantity blocks that you have. You can place these quantity blocks to wherever it needs to go. Another thing to keep in mind is this particular quantity block here and this one in Excel are not linked together. So if you make a modification to this Excel sheet here, let's say we're going to come in here, maybe insert a couple rows. Maybe we forgot to put something in. So if I come over here into the Excel file, and I'll go to row number 10, and maybe I'll go ahead and insert one. Actually, I'll insert a couple. I do need to come in here and put a number inside there, because if I don't, if I try to run it, it'll actually run through here, and if it finds no number like right here, you'll actually end the quantity block at that spot. So if you ever insert something, make sure you put in a row height of what it needs to be. Now that we have that, if we go back to OpenRoads Designer, you'll notice that quantity block is not linked back to the Excel file. So if you need to make modifications to it, simply just go back into the Excel file, make your modifications. If you need to do the auto size columns again, you can do that. Go ahead and run it again. Now the files are done. Click on OK. Now if you go back into OpenRoads Designer, and if we go to one of our tools here, Excel to OpenRoads Designer, and I'll just left click to place it, you'll notice that we have the new quantity block placed out there. Another thing that you will notice is if I hover over the quantity blocks, you'll see that it's a cell. So if for some reason you need to come in here and make a modification to this quantity block in OpenRoads Designer, you could come in here, select that particular quantity block, and use a drop element tool and drop it to its individual pieces and make modifications to it. But it's a lot easier if you just go back into the Excel file, make your modifications, and then go back into OpenRoads Designer and delete the previous one, and then come back up here to one of your Excel to OpenRoads Designer tools and place the new quantity block in the location that you want. And of course this one here is going over the sheet, so of course I would probably want to move it somewhere else like what I have here, and then I should be good to go. So that's the demonstration of taking the final product that you have in Excel, running the auto size to automatically size your columns, and then using the run to run that in order for it to create the two files that it needs, which one is a text file and one's a grid file, to bring that information over into OpenRoads Designer for you to place that quantity block. Now you'll notice that on here it's on this particular named boundary, and of course this is sheet number 1, so if I go back over, let me go to my workflow of drawing, and I'll just go to my models here, and this one right here is boundary number 1, so I want to go to sheet number 1, and it should reflect anything that I place inside of this boundary right here, this rectangle boundary. It should reflect in sheet number 1, which is this right here. So if I double left click on it, you'll see that that information is placed inside there. So I want to make sure whenever I place information in that named boundary, from the default, I want to make sure I'm inside of that boundary. So that's the demonstration of placing that quantity block from Excel over into the CAD file to that named boundary that you want.